Hi, Nicola. It's really nice to meet you, meet you, I guess. I want to get started right away. I want to find out as much as we can about you. So thank you for joining us. But tell me, what's your background in mixed martial arts and how did you get into Burmese boxing?
Yeah, so I actually started martial arts because I couldn't dance. So my mum made me do ballet for about 15 years. And it took me 15 years to be like, Mum, I really don't enjoy this and I'm not very good. And she was like, cool, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, it's that simple. So I was like, okay, if I'm bad at ballet and I can't dance, maybe I'll be good at like full contact sports. So let's try martial arts. And that's when I first moved into Taekwondo. I won a world title in that. I then moved into kickboxing and won a British title. And then, as you just said, I actually did some Burmese bare knuckle boxing. So it's called
Yeah.
left way. And the rule set is punches, kicks, knees, elbows, headbutts, no gloves. And now I'm
Wow.
ranked world number 2 in that. Yeah. So that's how I got in. And yeah, crazy rule set.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so funny because you very casually say, "Yeah, I went from ballet to mixed martial arts," like it's such a common transition. But I don't think I've actually ever heard anyone say that they were a ballerina and then now you're a badass, basically. So pretty cool. But Burmese boxing, forgive me, I'm not familiar with it. Besides the headbutt, what's the difference between regular boxing and Burmese boxing?
So it means that you can use like a whole different like arsenal of weapons. You can use your knees, so you can knee to the body, to the face. You can use elbows. Because there's no gloves, you can also sort of like grab and pull people. You can do
There's no
standing.
glove?
Yeah, there's no gloves either. It's bare knuckle, so there's no gloves
Okay,
too.
Burmese bare knuckle boxing. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Um,
you're number two right now?
yeah, 2 in the world.
Well, congrats on that. Have you ever thought about doing just mixed martial arts and MMA fight?
So I did think of doing that. And then during the lockdown and during the whole of COVID, I actually, during a sparring session, dislocated my knee and tore my ACL, MCL, and my hamstring. And although I
Yeah.
tried to pop it back in, it hasn't quite been the same. So I was training with a whole full-on leg brace and started doing boxing. Um, Kept going down to the boxing gym with my little leg brace. And yeah, the coach was like, Nick, do you want to turn over and do some professional boxing? And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm a kickboxer. And
Yeah.
then when I realized that my knee was taking a while to heal, I was like, actually, you know what? This is quite a cool segue. And I feel like right now in my life, this is the direction. So I moved over to professional boxing and I've got my debut this weekend, which is very
Oh,
exciting.
that's amazing. So you've already competed in Burmese boxing, but now you're going to be doing just straight boxing?
Just pure boxing. And there are so many rules because the bare knuckle boxing, there felt like there was no rules. And now they're like, you can't jump and punch, you can't punch them with 2 hands at the same time. You're not
Yeah,
allowed to punch them in the back of the head. You definitely
that's
can't elbow them.
yeah, I imagine it's going to be hard for you to make that transition when you're basically told it's anything goes to all these this major rule set. So I understand how that could be frustrating for you. But I want to pause and go back to this injury situation. You can tell you're really a true fighter because the way that you talk about your injury and training on it simultaneously, there was no point in your career of your injury where you were like, I'm going to take a break and not do anything for a while. It sounds like no matter where you were at in your injury, you always did something physically.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know what, that's such an important part of being an athlete is just like injuries are bound to happen. So you can either like let them consume you and, like take that whole time off and, like, feel a bit sorry for yourself. Or
Mhm.
actually you can be like, look, this is the situation. It's not ideal, but like, what can I do that's actually going to help my game? So I was like,
Yeah,
look, cool. I still have 2 hands. I can't move around and do all the fancy footwork. Let's just try learn to box.
that's
And I
amazing.
just ended up really enjoying that.
Yeah, I love that. I myself, my backstory is I'm recovering from spine surgery that I got about 9 months ago. So
Oh, insane.
I really admire you for continuing your training and finding another route. Not only did you find another route to train, but you learned a whole new sport in it while you were probably should be recovering from your injury. So did you take any time off? Where are you at in your recovery process? Are you fully healed now? And do you ever want to go back to mixed martial arts training, or have you just decided to stick with straight boxing?
So I am fully healed now. It was
Okay.
a super long recovery process. I remember the first time I went to the physio and we tried taking off the leg brace and I couldn't even sit. And I laughed. You know, like you can only laugh. Like obviously I felt really upset, like because before I was like squatting big weights, kicking people in the head, and now I can't even sit on a chair. Like, what's wrong? But you know, you just have to laugh and just, you know, remember you can't compare yourself to when you're at your best. You just have to compare yourself to yesterday. And if I was a little bit better, okay, I'm happy with that because this is just where I am now. And that really helped me. And you know what? I would love at some point to go back into kickboxing, the Burmese bare knuckle boxing, and get a world title in that. But at the same time, for me, the focus right now is like, this is an exciting new path that I never even thought of. And I think that's like the great part about life, is that sometimes it takes you places which you didn't even dream of. So
Yes.
to have this, it feels like something new is being ignited, and to be fully immersed in it and almost just be like a sponge again. You know, there's something quite nice about being a beginner for the first
Yes.
time,
Yes.
and like climbing
Yes.
the ladder again, and there's that competitiveness and there's that hunger, and that's what I
Yeah.
feel. So I'm gonna hang on to that right now.
That's exciting. I very much understand that. I was a wrestler for my whole childhood into
No
college,
way,
and
so cool.
when mixed martial arts, it was like similar. You know, you're like, okay, we're still being aggressive, it's still a contact sport, but you have to learn a whole new, like you said, the rule set, all the skills. You know, sometimes you even train different for the cardio and the weightlifting. Like it's different, each sport is different, and it, in my opinion, it reignites a fire in you that can easily die out when you're getting punched in the head or doing a sport that's as strenuous as taekwondo or kickboxing. It's just like, oh, over and over and over. So you find this new sport where it's still strenuous, but you know, it's different. It's nice to be like a white belt, you know, like jujitsu
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's the thing. I say that all the time. And you know what? So like fighters will appreciate it. You know that you're still learning and you've got a lot to learn when the coach doesn't use you as an example. You know, like
Yeah.
he doesn't use me as an example yet. So I'm like, okay, we've still got to work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, who could show me this move? You're like, pick me. And the coach is like, not you, Nicola. Okay.
Yeah, like,
Well, it's really exciting. So it sounds like you just want to focus on straight boxing right now, but there may be an opportunity for you to do mixed martial arts or go back to kickboxing, but right now you want to focus on straight boxing.
yeah, that's right, for sure.
Okay, that's awesome. So I'm familiar with Injitsu. I actually am now a representative for Injitsu, and I don't teach the classes, but I know that you have been working with Injitsu for a while now. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so it's been really cool actually to actually be in a position where I feel I can share a lot of my experiences, and not just like the physicality of, okay, like, you know, this is a punch combination, jab, cross, hook, but actually trying to break down to people why would you throw this combination, when would you throw it, you know, how close do you want to be to that punch combination. And it not only helps everyone else have that sort of cerebral understanding of the martial art, but it actually just helps with your sort of fight IQ as well when you have that next level of detail. But yeah, I've loved it so much.
Yeah, I myself, I try not to coach or teach while I'm in my career because I feel like it takes a lot of energy from me and it drains me a little bit. But I think that this virtual teaching is less draining, less, you don't have to go to the gym, you don't have to gear up. Sometimes you really just can explain something like we are in a conversation and someone can learn that way. So what's been your favorite part of working with Jitsu? Have you made any connections with the people that you teach? Do you do one-on-one, or is it mainly group classes that you do?
So I mainly do group classes at the moment, and they're great to sort of show a variety of different things in terms of, you know, it gives almost a bit of a sneak preview in terms of like, this is a little bit of boxing that I've learned from this sport, and then this is from the kickboxing world, and this is from the Burmese bare knuckle boxing world. And it's almost like a dummy's guide to fighting, right? To try and bring it all together and have those top tips to share, which is useful for anyone listening, but also, as you say, for yourself, also being an active fighter, just to reinforce, this is what the coach said to me last week. Like, you know, it's a great to be able to share this with other people so that they know, you know, because you don't often find many martial art hand guides of this is how you throw a punch, or this is why you want to do sit-ups, you know, like you're just sort of told and you're like, oh, okay, I'll go do some sit-ups.
Yeah. And, you know, even if there are some online tutorials, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's who you want to learn from. It may be the style, but, you know, I'm over here watching a video from this guy, Chuck, but man, I would really like to, you know, I would like it if Nicola could show me that. So I think it's such a great platform that connects people. Do you personally ever watch tutorial videos online? And if you do, who's your favorite fighter or fighters to learn from?
So my favorite fighter to learn from, so there's a male Burmese python. I'm like the female Burmese python, but there's the male Burmese python, Anlung Sang, and yeah, I think he's just incredible to learn from. He trains with like a whole host of different fighters, from sort of purely like stand-up fighters to ones who do grappling and MMA as well, and to get sort of the bigger picture of just like pad drills, you know, combinations, defensive, offensive. I just find it mind-blowing.
That's awesome. Okay. So you have your boxing debut coming up. Could you explain what organization it's for, what the date is, just a little bit more details around that?
Yeah,
how can we watch that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it's happening this weekend on Saturday, so local in the UK, which is exciting. They're also going to be recording it as part of the documentary that they're doing. So I'm having a documentary being filmed of my journey from sort of kickboxing and the martial arts world over to pure boxing to see what the transition's like. So they're going to be filming my actual debut fight as part of that, and then that'll be released later this year, which is also exciting.
Very exciting. Very, very cool. How long have they been following you around and documenting your life?
So since the beginning of the year, actually. It's been quite funny because they've captured everything where I'm still making like rookie errors, like my first sparring class, and they've given me these boxing boots and they said, look, go like, let's see your boxing, but I'm still trying to get kickboxing out of me, and the boys are running towards me and I'm like, elbow. Oh.
Do you think that might happen in your actual debut? Because, you know, sometimes, and this is a good thing, when you do a sport for so long, it becomes second nature, natural reaction. And, you know, you're training to be just a boxer, but there's a highly good possibility that maybe you accidentally throw an elbow. Is that something you're concerned about?
At the moment, no. But I do wonder sometimes, they're going to say like, go, I'm going to hear the bell, I'm just going to be like, jab, head kick. And then it'll be like, she's out. No, she's off. But I think it should be okay. You know, once they put shoes on my feet, then I'm kind of like, I don't kick with shoes on. Like, I'm a lady, I only kick barefoot, you know? But only the elbows I need to look out for. But I've tried like training super hard to make sure that I don't throw them. And every time in sparring, every time I do, like I get this like, Nicola, don't throw an elbow. I'm like, yes, okay, you know.
I love that. What's the title of this documentary? And do you know where it's going to be released if we would like to watch it?
Yeah, so it's being released as part of a series called 360 Sport Documentaries. So I will share the link when it's available, and we can put it on in Jitsu, or I can share it with you guys. Both work.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll stay tuned, and maybe by the time we release this interview, we'll have a link that we can include there. This is a very normal question that you get asked a lot, but your opponent, what do you know about her? I know sometimes people don't like to go into details about the game plan, but is there a game plan? How have you been training for this specific opponent?
Yeah, so my opponent, like, it'll be a really competitive bout. I think one of the differences with professional boxing for females is that in male boxing, you have lots of journeymen, you know, guys who have records that like more losses than wins. But because women are moving into this and all the females want to do really well, we don't have so many journey women that actually every bout, including your debut, ends up being competitive, which is great, right? Because to be the best, you got to beat the best. But yeah, my opponent, she's Romanian, I believe, and lives in Hungary. And I'd say her best shot is probably her right hand. So, you know, just keeping an eye on that. But it'll be over 6 rounds. So for me, that's really good. I love a good 6-round fight. So
that's exciting. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
I know some people, myself included, are very mental. When I'm preparing for a fight, I have my coaches actually watch my opponent's tape, because I'll be watching and I'm like, wow, she looks really strong. She looks so fast. And I'm focusing on all these things that I can't control. I should be looking at the technique and, you know, okay, these are her weaknesses and this is where I can counter her, but I don't do that. Are you someone who watches the tape yourself? Are you religiously, you know, analyzing?
I'm the same as you. I'm the same as you. Even if someone turns up for sparring, they might not even be a boxer. It'll be like another girl. She'll turn up in the gym and I'll be like, are you here to spar me? Like, I'm not sparring today. And they're like, relax, like chill. And you know what? They're not a beginner. But in my head, they're like, I don't know, Bruce Lee. It's like I don't know. I just obviously think like, oh, I don't even do boxing. Like, but you do. Like, you're a strange person sometimes. But I'm the same as you. I don't watch it. I trust my coach. And sometimes, you know what? And you'll know, having fights, you can prepare and have a game plan as much. But sometimes when you turn up on the day, they fight totally different. So you just have to be really adaptable. So, you know, it's almost, you just got to weigh out the pros and cons of watching your opponent and actually just remembering that at the end of the day, you still got to be adaptable to how they fight on the night, not how they fight in their previous videos.
Oh yeah. And you know, from a mixed martial art, from an MMA fighter point of view, that can go very poorly for us, because sometimes we think, oh, we're fighting, you know, a wrestler, we train all this wrestling, and then they come out, throw a head kick, and you're just like, this is not what I thought was going to happen. So you're completely right. You have to adapt in the moment, and the fighter that can, you know, change the game plan on the fly are the ones that are usually the most successful. The people that are like, you know, looking and for that one shot and forcing the fight to happen, that usually never goes very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I love that. I think that's so important. I always say it when anything comes up that, like, you know, feels like a spanner in the works. I'm like, no, whoever adapts to this best wins. And I'm like, I'm ready. You know, it just helps.
And that goes back to what we were talking about. When you do something for so long, it becomes second nature and a natural reaction. And that's why it's kind of scary when you're new at something, you know, like what's going to happen when you go in the fight. Like with boxing, it's like, have I learned enough boxing for this to be natural reaction, or am I going to throw a knee or throw a kick or something? So I know you've been kickboxing forever, so it's not like you're just learning how to strike, but I'm really excited to maybe talk to you afterwards with your pro boxing fight and just see how it was different than kickboxing or Burmese bare knuckle boxing, which as soon as we get off this interview with you, I'm gonna Google that because I've never seen it, so I want to watch that.
I don't know if you'll enjoy it.
Oh, woman, I love a good fight, you know. I love the regular bare knuckle boxing, so I watch it and I think to myself, like, oh gosh, like these poor fighters, like, you know, CTE and things like that are unfortunately a big part of our sport. And so when there's things like, you know, headbutts or bare knuckle boxing, I'm just like, oh, the longevity of us as humans, you know, our fight career, but also just our brains, it worries me. I told myself a long time ago when bare knuckle became a big thing that I would never do it because I'm 34. I don't know how old you are, but it seems like it's not, you can't do that for very long. It's such a dangerous sport, or am I wrong? I don't know.
No, I completely agree. Like, I don't know, fighting with gloves, like, you know, obviously, you know, you get hit. Like, you get punched and kicked, but I don't feel the impact so much. You feel it afterwards. You're like, oh, like I kicked her shin. My shin feels sore afterwards, but adrenaline carries you through. When I got punched in the face with no gloves the first time, I was like, ho, move your head. Like, don't let that happen again. And I was like, the buzzer went, it was like, bam. And I was like, whoa, I've never hit. Well, you do, but you just don't remember it. I was like, yeah, you move your head because that was real. So yeah, you're right.
That's very true. It's so funny. And unless you've actually been in a fight, an MMA fight or a boxing fight, you don't understand what we say by, you're getting hit, but it's really not until after the fight that you're like, oh, I got a knot here, or I'm all bruised up, and it's just like, oh, I was just in a fight. But I can imagine, like you said, in a bare knuckle fight, like first fight, you're like, I am in a fight right now.
Yeah, that was literally it. Like, then the penny dropped and I was like, whoa, what did you sign up for?
Well, that's crazy. So do you feel like, as you prepare for your gloved boxing debut, less nervousness because it's similar to what you've done with kickboxing, where it's gloved and not as impactful with like the bare knuckle is, or is it the same amount of nerves as you would normally have?
So ordinarily, I thought after that like bare knuckle boxing fight, I was like, I'm never going to feel nervous again. This is like the epitome. I'll get it all out my system. I'll feel like fearless forever. But they're still there, like they're still there. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that they weren't. If anything, I've just got better at managing them and just reminding myself, like, this is what I want to do. And I actually started teaming up with a mindset coach. So every time I have like unhelpful thoughts and feelings, I have him to, as you were saying, like even if it's just sparring at the gym and another girl comes in and I see a shadow box and I think like, oh, she's so fast, I don't even want to shadow box because it will explode. Silly stuff like that. And I'll be able to speak to him about it, and then we can sort of work on the mind to make sure I don't get caught up in those cycles. And for me, like, that's helped the most, really, and it just makes me feel so much more calm, and sort of staying in check with them. I don't think they'll ever go, and I think that's all right, because it's a fight and they want to hurt you, so it's normal. But it's just saying, how can I just feel all of that and still go and perform at my best anyway?
That's so great to hear that you're working with a mindset coach. I feel like that's a much newer thing. I mean, 20 years ago, it was, this is a barbaric sport that we do. Let's face it, we're ladies, but we're in a very masculine, aggressive sport. But it's definitely, evolved over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And now there's a lot of focus on different things like mindset, movement, recovery, things that obviously should have been, in focus back then. But it's like, we were getting out of the stone ages, and now, we're fine tuning these, combat sports. So has this mindset coach really changed your game? Like, what have been the perks of working with someone on the mental side versus just punching the bag and running?
It just feels like I'm so much more present and in the moment. And I don't even just mean like for martial arts, I just mean in life now. So, every time that I feel like, oh, you've made me feel like this, it's like, actually, you haven't made me feel like that. That's just my reaction to what you've done. So just as a whole, I just feel so much more in control, and in check. Sometimes, someone like might land a cheeky shot, the ref says break, but they punch you in the face, and then you're just so angry that you just want to, you don't even care if you're being punched, you just want to hurt them. And it just helps me like pull that back and just be like, refocus, like just stay focused. Like, this happens, like, what's your game plan? Focus on that. And it's almost similar, you have like a personal trainer to help you with your physical body to be in like top performance. It's okay to have a mindset coach to help you be in like peak mental performance too, because we're not taught, I certainly wasn't taught like how to manage unwanted feelings, thoughts, emotions as a kid growing up,
Yeah. I'm really glad that you feel that way. And you're right. Sometimes things that we do in our sport, for better or worse, affect our personal life, right? And if we have a hard sparring day, we sometimes carry that throughout our personal lives, you know. So if you have a partner, you know, there's turmoil in your relationship. And so to find a way to, you know, like you said, just kind of not overreact or not let those emotions control you in sparring, or vice versa in your normal life, it's a game changer, not just for
Yeah.
your competitive side, but for life, right? Because I think we all could use a little bit of a lesson of how to control our emotions and, you know, filter them the right way. So that's
Yeah.
very good to hear that you're working on the mindset. I think it's very important. I myself, I haven't found the right person yet. So anytime I hear a professional fighter talk about that, I'm like, ooh, who are you working with? Like,
Yeah.
do you recommend them? And now, does this person, are they a therapist, or are they like specifically sports psychologist?
Yeah, so the guy, similar to you, actually, I went through quite a few different mindset coaches before I found someone I wanted, because I think it's hard, you know, because you like, you always have to have that trusting relationship, and sometimes you have to just go through a few people to find someone who like clicks or like understands and you're on the same page. But I went through like therapists, maybe I even tried some counselors because I didn't know what I was looking for. And the guy I work with, his name's Dean Leake, and he's the Olympic mindset coach for the GB Taekwondo team.
Oh,
So
wow.
really sports specific, really understands like the pressures at like an elite level, but through combat. So for me, like when we started speaking, I was like, you understand where I'm coming from, you know, because you understand my passion, you understand like the thoughts that are going through my head as a combat athlete. So yeah, for me, like
That's great. You know, you brought up a point where sometimes people, they know it's a very important thing to find a mindset coach, or, you know, counselor, someone to work on the mental and emotional side, but it's very hard to open up and to continually, each time you find someone and then it doesn't work out, it's like, oh man, with this next person, I gotta, you know, tell all these things that I'm feeling. And not everybody likes to talk about their feelings. I know a lot of fighters were kind of just like, I'm just gonna go work out and punch things, you know. And to
yeah.
open on this very, you know, it makes you feel a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for, vulnerable. And I just don't think that we're used to that as alpha males and alpha women. But I do think that it's, if you know, I'm talking not just you, to like all fighters out there, all combat sports athletes, that it's very important that if we, I would say, put the work in, put the time in to find the right person, because when you do, it's a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. Like it pays dividends, and you're totally right. It feels like getting into another relationship, like, I have to tell you my whole story again. Like, I don't want to do this. You know, you feel that. You're like,
Yes.
you won't understand me. I'm different, you know, all those
Yes.
usual dramas. But then when you do, I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I did. But there was that uncomfortable initial period where, you know, because sometimes I don't just talk about stuff related to fighting. I talk about things that are going on in my personal life or in work that have like,
Yes.
you know, I'm not happy with how I responded, or someone really annoyed me and because I felt this specific way because I couldn't see another view. You know, sometimes they felt like really petty. I was like, I know this sounds really silly, but they really annoyed me, you know. Or like this dream upset me, like silly stuff. But it's just
Yes.
like overcoming that and being comfortable. I just feel like, you know, it's those uncomfortable situations that actually help us grow. And sometimes you just have to go through that
Yeah.
to see if it's worth it.
Yeah. Are there any specific techniques that you could share with us about maybe visualization, or maybe a calming technique? I mean, like I said, I haven't found the right coach, mental coach yet, but I do wonder, like, are there any things that you guys are working on, like maybe backstage techniques before the fight, anything like that? Or is it more just like an overall talk about how you feel with training and stuff?
So I guess for me, like one of the key things that's really helped, and I know it sounds really silly, but it's just like noticing like the thought that's come. So if I get like a really unhelpful, like, you know, like she's punching so fast, and I'm like, but does that thought help me? And it's like, no. Okay, well, let it go. Like, what am I focusing on? Okay, so my game plan is, and then I'll tell myself what my game plan is. And I try to refocus. And then it might pop in again. And like, but she's really fast. And I'm like, okay, but does that help me? No. And it's just getting into the habit of, okay, I might have to have that little dialect with myself like 10, 100 times. But over time, it gets so much easier that I just do it once. Then I'm like, wow, I just came down from that real quick that I'm almost like, let's go celebrate. Like, you did so good. But it's incredible how that just adds up so quickly, but it made such a big difference. And, you know, I remember when I first did it with a bit of an eye roll, like, this isn't going to help. I'm like, will this help me? You know, like, and then it went, and I was like, whoa. Did that just help?
So it sounds like, you know, it sounds simple, but it's not simple, because, you know, I've tried to do similar things in the past where you're basically identifying in the moment, which is hard, unuseful thoughts, where it's like, okay, like, why am I even worrying about this? I worry about everything. You know, I told you I watched the video and I'm like, oh my God, you know, and that's not just with my fighting career. That's like with everything. I'm like, oh my God, what if this doesn't happen? And then it's like a downward spiral of negative thoughts. But if you can, you know, assess that in the moment and not even go down that spiral, what a life. So much happier.
Yeah.
You know,
also, you know what, I've also found journaling really helpful. Which sounds a bit silly, not like Dear Diary, but like anytime like I feel irate or like annoyed, I'll just like write everything down, because almost writing it down is like a way that I've got it off my chest and like exercise those thoughts, that I look at it and I just think like, I don't really think this, you know, not just being dramatic, but then at least I get to see it and like my rational brain will kick in. Otherwise, I just try and have a conversation in my head, and it's just like I am this. No, you're not. You know, that's like this silly little conversation, but it's on paper, and I'm like, okay, so now, like, what are the facts? And it helps.
That's so great. I mean, man, maybe you'll be the last person that I hear say that, and I'll actually do it. But I have heard so many people tell me, journaling, just write it down, and I'm like, you know, I just picture myself like angry in the moment, like, I feel this way about sparring today, you know, and I'm like, how is that going to help? But you're telling me that helped, and, you know, I'm very hard-headed, so maybe I'll try that the next time.
I mean, I felt so silly the first time I did it. Like, I was like, what is, I would journal, what even is the point in journaling? And I look back now, I just think like, that's so funny. But now when I do it, it almost feels like sometimes, you know, when you're so like angsty and anxious, it feels like you're carrying a weight or a pressure, and then by the time I've journaled, I feel like this weight that I didn't know I was carrying has just been lifted. And that's nice, and I like being in that like Zen space, you know.
I don't think everybody's looking for the Zen. It's just a matter of, are you willing to put the work in to get there? Right? So okay, I've learned so much from this conversation with you. Thank you so much. I'm gonna Google Burmese bare knuckle boxing. I'm gonna get excited about your boxing debut. I know it's this Saturday. I kind of want to ask you the corny question: how's the weight cut going? And what weight class do you fight?
Also, it was meant to be 64 kilos, but they called me last night and they were like, can you make 61.6? So I'd been on weight. So now I've got like another 2.7 kilos to drop, which should be fine. To be honest.
It's like 5 pounds.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Kilos. Hard for me to do math over here. Math is not my
every time someone talks to me in pounds, I have to convert it back, and I'm just like,
I was like, you're talking about kilos. I was like, okay. Well, is there anything else you want to promote? Now's the time to do it. We definitely want to know your social media handles. You know, I know you don't know a link of where we can watch the fight though right now, right?
I don't know. I don't have a link to the fight, but social media channels. So I have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and it's all at the BurmesePython.com. So yeah, it'd be great to follow, like, share. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we will put all of your social media handles in the episode notes here at the bottom. We're really looking forward to watching you. I'm inspired. I can't wait to get back in the cage. It's really fun to talk to professional athletes from
Likewise.
I know, bare knuckle. You know, I'm very, very impressed with you. Nicola, thank you so much for your time and good luck this weekend.
Oh, amazing. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Ashlee.
Bye.